A common thing done uncommonly well will command the attention of the world, George Washington Carver said. The Apostle Paul lived for God uncommonly well. Paul commanded the attention of the world with how he lives for Christ. Paul made the Christian life a pursuit of doing it the best he can. Listen to 1 Corinthians 9 today on the 260 journey. Paul said this starting in verse 24. You've all been to the stadium and seen the athletes race. Everyone runs, one wins. Run to win, Paul said. All good athletes train hard. They do it for a gold medal that tarnishes and fades. You're after one that's gold eternally. I don't know about you, but I'm running hard for the finish line, Paul says. I'm giving it everything I got. No sloppy living for me. And then he ends with this. I'm staying alert and in top condition. I'm not going to get caught napping, telling everyone else about it, and then missing out myself. We live in a sports-infested society, just as they did in the first century. And Paul speaks sports to get our attention, and he does get our attention. The image that Paul uses here are the Greek games. The Greeks dated their calendars based on those games. The Jews dated their calendars based on when they thought the creation date was. The Romans dated theirs by when they thought Rome was founded, and we do it by the life of Christ. That's the AD and BC. Because sports were important to the Greeks, those calendars were based on those games. Honestly, it seems in our society, we kind of lean towards the Greeks. Sports and athletes, that's the image Paul uses to speak about this Christian life. I want my goal to be what Paul is speaking about, and that's not to get to heaven only, but to win on the way there. In order to do that, he chooses two sports that is most grueling in their training. He chooses boxing and running. They both require treacherous training and workouts in order to be good and to compete, and even more has to be given up to win at those sports. In order to win at anything, certain things need to be sacrificed and let go. To win at Christianity, Paul puts everything on the table. He's saying that Christ and that relationship is worth giving up anything for. Everything else is a distant second. In fact, look at what Paul puts on the table in the preceding verses. He would give up on certain eating habits, verse 4, even getting married, verse 5, and a salary in verses 6 and 7. Think about it. To be a world-class athlete, they're willing to give up certain foods, committed relationships, and even a career to do their passion. And so was Paul. And Paul was for a greater reason. The end is eternal. In fact, he goes on to say, you've all been to the stadium and seen the athletes race. Everyone runs to win. And he says to us, run to win, because all good athletes train hard. They do it for a gold medal that tarnishes and fades. You're after one that's gold eternally. The power and strength of anything is determined by what you're willing to sacrifice for it. Is it worth it? Is it worth giving up things for? Is it even worth dying for? Only fanatics make a difference. The status quo don't even make a dent. Baptist preacher Harry Ironside said it like this: no sacrifice should be great for him who gave himself for us. Notice how many times Paul says that I may win from verses 19 through 24. It's amazing. He says this, for though I am free from all men, I've made myself a slave to all, that I may win. To the Jews I became a Jew, so that I may win those Jews. He goes on to say that I'm not under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I may win those who are under the law. Verse 21, those who are without the law, though not being with the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might win those who are without the law. To the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I've become all things to all men, so that I may by all means save some. I do all things for the sake of the gospel, so that I may become a fellow partaker of it. Do you know that those who run a race, in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way, here's the sixth one, that you may win. 6 times in 6 verses, winning was on his mind. And you can't win unless you're willing to sacrifice. He was in it to win it. Don't just be a Christian. Don't just do Christian. Win and give it all. When it's all said and done, in 5 years, even in 1 year, no one's going to care who won the NBA Finals, Wimbledon, the Super Bowl, the World Series, or the NCAA Men's Basketball Final Four. They hold up a trophy that no one will care about, and even next week. That winning has an expiration date, but not our winning. Jim Elliot was a missionary in the 1960s that not only knew that, but he lived it. His story is in the book Through Gates of Splendor and the movie End of the Spear. He gave up his life trying to reach a group of South American Indians with the gospel that eventually killed him. He sacrificed, and Jim put these words in his journal. He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. If we are the sheep of his pasture, remember that sheep are headed for the altar. Adoniram Judson was America's first missionary. He went to Burma. He once said about serving God and success, there's no success without sacrifice. If you succeed without sacrifice, it is because someone has suffered before you. If you sacrifice without success, it's because someone will succeed after. Thanks for joining the 260 Journey.